one unsolved murder case in Texas history, end quote.
Number one, baby.
Yeah.
I love it.
I don't think they have like a big board in the Texas police station where they...
So you think they vote?
Oh, it seems all relative, right?
Yeah, I guess so. But they seem pretty resolute about this guy being at the top of the heap.
And it's a rowdy town. You'll see that.
Is it really?
It's a rowdy town.
You been there?
No, I haven't been there, but I read it's a rowdy town.
Fun to read about a rowdy town.
A rowdy town with two rowdy boys. Let's get into it.
On February 22nd, 1946, in the Texas-Arkansas
Is my shit loud?
border town appropriately named Texarkana, Jimmy Hollis, 25, and Mary Jean Larry, 19, went on a date to the movies and began driving back to Mary Jean's home. On the way, they stopped their car on a quiet, unpaved road about 100 yards away from some houses in a residential neighborhood.
That's what I like.
There
to
you go.
hear. Yeah, you know what they're doing.
How many
Here we go. Wait, yeah.
They were fucking.
So wait, in this
Is this
scenario...
still funny?
In this scenario
It's
where
2019. When did this bit start? God, this had to be like caveman times.
you think like a Neanderthal looked at his other Neanderthal pals and went,
Yeah, probably. It's one of the world's greatest bits. I feel like people don't do it enough nowadays because we take it for granted. Spread that around this year. You know, if you see your two friends and you think maybe they've been smooching behind your back, be like, I know what you guys are up to a little.
I actually don't think your angle's catching, and I think we can still see your face a little bit, so you might have to turn.
Is this?
If I turn...
It's like we're both making
Why
out.
is it getting
After
freaky?
about
It's
10
getting
minutes,
freaky.
a man walked up. As Mary Jean would later relate, quote, he wore a white mask over his head with cutout places
They got yak man fucking in the trees, or finding people that fuck in the
for
trees.
his eyes and mouth. He pointed a flashlight and pistol at us. He came up on the driver's side of the car and told Jimmy something like this: I don't want to kill you, fellow,
They got Kodak robbing niggas for sex is nasty work.
so do what I say. End quote. Both Jimmy and Mary Jean got out of the car. The assailant made Jimmy take off his pants, then hit him twice over the head, cracking Jimmy's skull and knocking him unconscious. The attacker then tried to sexually assault and rob Mary Jean.
Oh, okay. It did. Yeah, it was good. It got
What do you mean by that? What do you?
a little rough.
Yeah, it's a little rough.
Interesting that he would go through the theatrics of wearing a mask.
Yeah, anytime someone wears a mask and it's a serial killer situation, you wonder, did they intend to maybe let them go? Because the only reason why you're wearing a mask is so that they can't then identify you later.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
If a killer approached me and he had a mask on, I would feel a little bit better about my chances of surviving. Because if he walks up with a gun and his, like, you could just see his face, like I could see it's your face, I know that's probably the last thing I'm going to see. And right now I actually thought of staring into those dead cold eyes. And if that's the last thing I see on this earth, I made some mistakes along the way.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Mary Jean pleaded with the attacker, telling him they didn't have any money. The attacker hit Mary Jean, knocking her to the ground. When she got up, the man told her to run. Mary Jean took off down the road, but was wearing high heels. The assailant quickly overtook her and hit her again, knocking her to the ground, where he began to abuse her. At this point,
How did they get all that information? How the fuck they know she was running? The way he told her to run. Did he confess?
Jimmy struggled to his feet and managed to stop a passing car. It's thought the assailant saw the car lights and fled from Mary Jean. Both Jimmy and Mary Jean received medical treatment. Jimmy spent over 12 days recovering in the hospital.
This guy did literally get his skull cracked and still was able to get up and flag down another car, which then saved their lives.
Yeah.
Good for Jimmy.
I mean, it could just be like a fracture, right? I don't know how skulls really work.
From what I read, it was a
Pretty bad?
pretty severe crack. From the description, she thought that he had shot him. That's how loud the cracking noise was, which is not good.
So, 0 for 2.
Yeah, 0 for 2. But this, as you'll see, would be just the first of his attacks.
In the mid-40s, Texarkana was a relatively violent place. Killings, robberies, and other crimes were very common. It might make sense then, while the attack on Jimmy and Mary Jean was brutal, the community didn't pay it much attention until another attack occurred a month later. This one fatal.
Yeah, I mean, it must be an upsetting place if a masked man trying to assault two people is just passing news.
Yeah.
Like, oh, did you hear about that, the masked phantom who tried to murder two people?
Niggas is too depressed to be worrying about you getting hit on the head, fam. Nah, I give a fuck. Sorry. Oh, fuck.
Oh, yeah. Hey, let's go get a soda pop.
On the morning of March 24th, authorities found the bodies of 29-year-old Richard L. Griffin and 17-year-old Polly Ann Moore in a 1941 Oldsmobile on what was then known as a lover's lane. Both had been shot in the back of the head.
Nah, we gonna call it
was found
back
between
shot
the two
lane.
front
We
seats
upgraded.
on his knees, with his head in his hands. His pants pockets were inside out, thought to be the result of someone trying to rob him. Polly Ann was discovered face down in the back seat of the car, though there was evidence that suggested she may have been murdered on a blanket outside the car and placed there later. The couple had last been seen around 10 p.m. the night before, eating dinner with Richard's sister. They had been shot with what was thought to have been a Colt .32 caliber pistol, and any footprints that would have been around the car had been washed away throughout the day.
We gotta give kids places to make out.
That's unfortunately, most of these serial killer cases happen in a lover's lane scenario.
That's what I'm saying. We gotta give them a well.
See, my backshot's so devious, they gonna think it's gunshots. Like, no, I'm lying. I never had sex. I ain't never couldn't stand it, but too old for that now.
Park's farmhouse. Police tried to gather evidence and interview possible suspects and witnesses. According to Johnson, quote, people would stand out near the front of their homes and yell at you to identify yourself before you got too close. You had to identify yourself or you would get shot. End quote.
Fair.
So yeah, I mean, we're on high alert here.
Yeah.
If this was me, I'd have a double-barrel shotgun pointed directly at the door at all times.
You'd probably have to have shifts, because I'd want someone out there at night too.
I'm staying up day and night. I don't sleep.
Well, then now you're setting yourself up that's vulnerable because
That's
you're
true.
gonna fall asleep.
Maybe I'll take a nap.
Yeah, take a nap.
I'll take a nap and then
Hey, I'll
let's do
tag in.
shifts. You're right.
Yeah.
Shifts are good. Shifts are good. I wanted to be. I've never even shot a gun, so
You've never shot a gun?
no,
You don't have to.
I don't think I have to.
Authorities followed bloody footprints left by the killer that went from the house across the highway, where they eventually lost the trail. While this incident exacerbated the fear of the phantom killer, it's possible this killing was done by someone else. The other attacks had targeted people younger than the Starks and had taken place in cars, not homes. In addition, Virgil was shot with a .22 caliber semi-automatic pistol, a different weapon than the .32 caliber used in the previous murders of Betty Jo and Paul. Still, this incident was included in the Phantom investigation as panic swept the area. Authorities took to dressing as young couples in an effort to lure the murderer, but it appeared the Phantom was done. 2 months later, with no more Phantom murders, the community's fear began to decrease, and life started to get back to normal. No one was ever found guilty of the murders.
Backtrack just a bit.
About the dressing up?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, I thought so.
I'm imagining an old Texan man with a large bushy mustache. It's like a chubby Sam Elliott, a cop hat on, a white t-shirt, pack of cigarettes rolled up in it.
You're imagining a clearly adult, burly police officer
Exactly
trying to
right.
look like a 16-year-old boy.
100%.
And it's hilarious.
Yes. And next to him, also an adult male.
With a big old mustache
Yeah,
and
sort
a
of
wig
like-
on.
Sort of like maybe
Yeah.
pretending to make out. Or maybe actually making out.
Or
like,
pre-recorded noises
What?
of smooching noises.
Oh,
Like a lot.
like a Ferris Bueller situation. Just sort of.
That's like cartoon kissing. No one sounds like that when they're kissing.
What kind of kissing animation is that then?
With that, it's time to look into possible theories behind the Texarkana Phantom murders, of which there are basically only two. The first theory is H.B. Duty Tennyson, a college student who confessed to some of the killings in a note left behind after he killed himself. According to a newspaper from the day of his death, a sheriff reportedly said the note read, quote, "Why did I take my own life? Well, when you committed 2 double murders, you would too. Yes, I did kill Betty Jo Booker and Paul Martin in the city park that night, and killed Mr. Stark and tried to get Mrs. Stark." End quote. According to Duty's cousin, forensic
Iron Man?
psychiatrist Dr. John Tennyson, Duty had connections to all
Do I
of the
have
victims.
trigger words?
He
Am I
was allegedly
retarded or
an
something?
usher at the theater where some victims of the attacks had seen movies before their deaths, and had been in the same high school band as Betty Jo. According to Dr. Tennyson, one of Duty's friends lived under the same roof as the sister of Katie Starks.
All right.
So he had some connections to some of the victims. Mm-hmm. But I will note that the sources, when it came to that note in particular, were shaky at best.
It was just him. What do they say these things? Why is this hearsay?
People want to have
Answer me.
It's like that. People in the public want answers. There's this horrible thing happening in their town. They look to the authorities for answers, and if they don't have them, there's outrage. So you need to have something to say.
Interesting.
So
Very, very interesting.